Yeah, that's definitely not an Epiphone. Welcome back, Troglodytes, to your daily dose of guitar information, the Trogly's Guitar Show. Craig sent me an email to a very interesting Facebook Marketplace offering. So let's go ahead and take a look at this thing. Wow, that's an interesting Les Paul. It's got black binding, it's a gold finish, you get a little bit of white, a little bit of black, some stripes going on. Our humbuckers are looking a little bit strange, almost Gretchen style, and then somebody scribbled all over it. Apparently all the members from the band Rooney. So perhaps that would get someone excited. Honestly, I'd never heard that band name before, but I am familiar with a couple of their songs. So it's like a weird promotional guitar or something. We've seen a lot of these on the show, but my friends, this one gets even stranger. So first off, we've got our metric bridge, so that tells you it was likely made overseas, but look at your knob orientation. It is the opposite direction of what it normally is. Typically, these knobs are in the higher position as compared to these. But my friends, the weirdness hasn't even begun yet. Look at this fretboard. What is this inlay? It is literally the Epiphone logo. Why? Why would you do that? It's actually kind of cool because of how bizarre it is, but we even have the black binding on the neck that works really well with the yellow Diablo finish. But then you get to the headstock, it's also plastered with Epiphone on the truss rod cover and even your main logo, but this headstock shape is not right for an Epiphone. It says clearly in the description, not an Epiphone. Fake Epiphones are 100% a thing, but this one's just like trying too hard to be something that it shouldn't have to be so convincing to be. But we're not even done yet. In case you missed it earlier, EPI. There's another Epi hidden on this guitar. That's just absolutely ridiculous. They've got it marked down to $300. If you can verify these signatures, I'm sure this is worth it just as a conversation piece. When you flip it over to the back, surprisingly, it is a set neck, so not one of the cheaper bolt-on designs. Now, I can't tell you how many pieces the body would be because it's all hidden underneath the gold finish. This one was just so weird I had to share. Because we need to thicken the plot even more. This appears to be a Gibson version of an Epiphone Gibson promotional guitar, the Gibson Hummer. No, we're not talking about the hummingbird and shortening things here. Read it and weep on a real COA. There was a Les Paul Hummer collaboration. You know, those really big gaudy trucks. And here's what it looked like. Does this start to look familiar now? So you've got the grill going on here, but it normally says H-U-M-M-E and then you can't see the R. So they took this and modified it to say Epi, and then instead of having the Hummer branding, they decided to go for the whole Epiphone thing. According to this Reverb listing, approximately 100 were made. I kind of doubt that. That seems like way too many, but who knows? Could have been a promotional thing where you buy a Hummer, you get a free Les Paul. But as with most promotional guitars, sadly, not mother of pearl inlay, you get the ugly looking pearl white stuff. Check out your strap buttons on these things, which I'm sure ties into the car somehow. But then the side profile shot shows you, again, we've got the black binding on these. Ah, cool, locking Spurzl tuner stock from the factory. And this one had a flight case. I like the way that this one's aged on the headstock though. And cool, they did number what they were, so this one is 2. I wonder if it's like the Donzi Les Pauls, where they set out to make that many, but maybe they didn't actually get all the way there, or do collectors really just hold on to those things? So there you go. One of the more interesting knockoff Gibsons that I've ever seen. At least they made it unique. But now let's talk about some other guitars I found on Facebook. Mike was very proud of his 2 Gibson Les Paul Customs, and these things caught my attention because one of these is not like the other. I'll give you a couple of seconds here. Which one is strange? If you answered the left one, yes, you're right. It has dot inlays. What on earth? So at first I thought, okay, yeah, it's just a studio custom. Those things existed roughly from 1983 till 1985, where it took the then new, at that time, Les Paul Studio, but dressed it up a little bit more, but still left the dot inlays. However, what caught my attention as to why that could not be the case is we have a full thickness body that has binding on the back. The Studio Customs did not have that. And the other thing that we can use to eliminate that is the fact that we have a real Les Paul Customs headstock veneer over here. It's got the full-on mother of pearl inlays and logo, whereas the Studio Standards, they did not have that and their headstock was a very different shape. So needless to say, this thing is a bit of a freak. So I talked to the owner about it, and he says he bought it like that in 1990 for $525, and it's his favorite guitar of the 2. And another fun story about these 2 guitars, they're only 16 serial numbers apart. Unfortunately, this is the only photo to go off of, but it looks like we're rocking fucking ABR1 bridges, so that would put us somewhere in the 1970 to 1975-ish range. Probably towards the latter would be my guess. But we've got a couple of different options here. A, it could have started life as a studio custom, and somebody added the back binding and did a complete refinish and added a new headstock veneer and shaped up the headstock. That seems really, really unplausible, especially because of the whole ABR1 bridge, so we can cross that one out. B, this guitar had a headstock repair at one point in time that was so brutal it destroyed the fretboard, so they had to replace it with one that was readily available, and it just happened to have dot inlays. Option C would be, it could be a crazy factory custom order. I actually have seen that before. But Mike later commented that he thinks the blocks were just painted over. He's the one that owns the guitar, so maybe he can see something that we can't out of this photo. I mean, I suppose it's possible. I have heard of people that prefer the dot inlays over something so gaudy. But it looks like it's got Spurzle tuners on it, knobs have been replaced, pickups look like they could have been swapped, pickguard has been taken off. The person who owned this was definitely not scared of modifying it. But without additional photos, there's no way we can go further. But this photo makes me think of this meme that I saw today that I'll never forget. I see your future. You're buying a new Les Paul. Wait a second. You already own 3 Les Pauls just like this one. Sweats worriedly. I resonate with that joke strip. They're very similar, but if you really get down to the nitty-gritty, they're all so very different. You can have 10 Les Pauls in the same finish and have something that you like about each and every single one. You buy what you like. But I love scouring Facebook groups because sometimes you find extraordinary examples. Crazily modified, questionable history stuff like we've been talking about, and then sometimes you strike upon gold. Denny here shared this gorgeous wine red Les Paul custom. He's made a whole bunch of different modifications to it, but it still retains the 3-point bridge, which is a nice feature that was very, very briefly used in about 1982 through 1983. But normally wine red customs don't really do much for me, but this one is different from the rest. Denny's Les Paul custom has a figured mahogany back. That is really rare in this era. I have seen it a few times, but just look at that. That's insane for an 82 custom. In the late 90s, sure, you find the quilty and flame backs, and 2000s, you've got like my Les Paul standards that I've documented that have the quilty and or flamed, and it's just luck of the draw. It's not a spec, unless you've got a super custom that has a figured back, but that is maple. But this is just really straight pinstripey flame all on a one-piece mahogany body. That's just absolutely insane. And I love this cavity photo shot. It proves to you that it's not just a veneer somebody put on it. Definitely wouldn't mind adding that one to my collection because that's an extraordinary ordinary. But on my show, I talk about extraordinary ordinary examples, and then I talk about stage 4 guitars, when they become so beatenly decrepit that they start to become worth more because they've got a vibe. But Gustavo is sharing with us today Moldy, a 1969 Gibson Deluxe. Except for it doesn't look like anything like that anymore. Here's what it looks like. I don't know, we might need to invent stage 5, because that is just some insane greening. Apparently the bronze powder within the original gold finishes, it will turn green when it's exposed to the elements. So if there's a way for moisture to wick in there, it will, and then it oxidizes, and then we get this effect. But yet it's been played completely through the finish there. This is something that the Murphy Labs cannot recreate. For example, they tried on the Ness Deluxe, and yeah, some examples look better than others. It's just a hard effect to get. But this is definitely a guitar that's seen some bar work. I mean, do I even need to say that it was routed for humbuckers? I mean, it's a working man's guitar. He's gonna do whatever he wants with it. I mean, look, he's even worn through the pickguard layers, including a little bit on the spot right there. And you can see where his hand rubs against the bridge going through the plating. The back is equally as chewed up. He must be a solo player because he's worn through the finish right here, reaching all our higher notes. And there we go, the old pantograph logos that fall off, and then you're just left with a mother of pearl block that vaguely resembles the Gibson logo. So cheers, Gustavo, that's a player. Kifa ended up posting a similar guitar of his from 1970. It's got a very similar vibe. Some people just have very acidic sweat that burns through finishes like this. But what I like about this guitar is it's been modified even further. Not one mini toggle, but another one right under that one. And a well-deserved refret. But speaking of modifications again, we've got one last one to feature tonight. Simon was asking some questions about this Les Paul he had recently gotten. It's red all over and blacked out. So let's see if we can help them, because most Gibson Les Pauls don't look like this unless you're talking about a chambered Blackout from 2018 in Stallion Red. So first off, let's look at our knobs. These are very aged, but you need to look. It only goes to 5. So 5 to 0, then 0 to 5, and you've got 2 of those, and then this one goes to the traditional 10. That would be used on the Les Paul Artist model. It had the built-in Moog electronics. So now when we come over here, this makes a lot more sense. That's actually factory mini toggle switches for your compression expansion. I think the other one was brightness. However, they added another location right here, moved the original mini toggle down, and then added another one there, maybe for coil splitting, I'm not sure. We've got a TP6 tailpiece, except for the fine tuners have been replaced with something that probably works a little bit better. Our bridge is still original, although upside down, but it has the sustain sisters. That's what makes the bridge look larger than it is, because it's a big brass block that inserts into the guitar. But now looking up here, instead of a toggle switch, we have another knob. That could be a number of things. I can tell it's been refretted, and Artist came in a few different colors, but none of them were red. And judging by the style of finish checking, nah, this is definitely not factory original finish. And these normally would have been bound. However, he's saying that if you scratch away the black paint, there's not actually binding there. It's possible it is there, and that particular area just doesn't show it very good, and they just like completely covered over it, or maybe they removed it and put normal binding on. That seems a little bit labor intensive, but you never know what somebody might do. Maybe they put a wooden veneer over the entire thing because somebody had once routed it for like a Kaler or something, and they wanted to hide that when they did the refinish job. So that covered over the binding on the top. So maybe see if there's like the binding on the edge. But that definitely does not look like the most professional refinish work. It's either that or definitely saw some humidity. But I was surprised to see the Moog board is still in there. Then you get to the headstock and everything's looking right. It looks like they replaced our nut. Instead of having the brass one, now we've got a regular style. But you still have the Artist truss rod cover, so that's cool. You still have the LP inlay, love that. It really just needs cleaned up a bit here. Otherwise, they didn't touch it. So personally, in my opinion, yes, I do believe this started life as an Artist. However, it definitely was heavily modified. But as far as explaining everything, that's just one you'd have to probably find the owner who did it. All right, Troglodytes, I hope you enjoyed the fun tonight. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll catch you tomorrow on the next one. Take care. If you enjoyed tonight's episode, consider subscribing. I post videos like this every day. And you might even enjoy this next one.